After Effects offers one of the most powerful and dynamic text tools available for motion graphics. If you had previous experience with setting text in InDesign, Illustrator, or Photoshop, then this will make complete sense to you. You have an array of tools available to you that would make your work with text in this program a breeze. So now let's go ahead and create a composition. I'm going to set the same settings as I had before, 1280 by 720, so nothing's changing on that. And let's call this composition set text, because this will be the first time that we actually set text in this program. Now, let me go ahead and fit this to fit the screen at 100%. And what I want to do is I want to go ahead and create a text layer. Now, creating text is very simple. You could either do it the way you did in other programs, such as choosing the text tool and then clicking somewhere on the canvas or in the stage in this case, or on the composition window in our case in After Effects. Or you can always right-click on the timeline, go New, and choose Text from that drop-down menu. You also find that under Layer, New, Text. So there are three ways of actually getting text into After Effects. Actually, there are more than that. So now, let's go ahead and use that method. I'm going to go ahead and first click on the Text tool, and I'm going to click here somewhere, and then I'm going to say, I'm going to type, this is my first text. Now, when that happens, let me go ahead and reset my workspace to standard. So I'm going to go ahead and reset the standard workspace. You will notice that with the standard workspace, you don't have access to any of the menus that you usually have when you're working in programs such as Photoshop or Illustrator. So in order to call those, you can actually go into the window dropdown and go to character to open up a character tab if you want to. Or let me reset this again so you can see the different options. You can go ahead and change your workspace from standard to say text, and that will open up all of the text tabs available for you within the program to manipulate text. So with that setup, you'll notice that all the tools that are most of the tools that are available to you in other programs that allow you to typeset become available to you inside After Effects. Things such as selecting the text by clicking and dragging with the text tool, and switching the color of your characters by simply dragging in the on the color swatch, increasing or decreasing the values of the actual typeface. Also choosing different typesets. So if you haven't fonts installed in your system, or fonts that you have downloaded from the cloud, you would have them available in here. And you can, it's just as simple as with any other program. You can also highlight that window and actually browse through by using your arrow tools once you have highlighted the first, whatever is available to you at the time. So there are many options as to how you can work with that particular tool. You also have the ability to change the leading, the spacing between characters. So let me go ahead and between lines of characters. So let me go ahead and drop this down to 2 lines of text. And what I want to do at this point is I want to choose the leading by switching from auto over here, this is your leading, to one of the available options. Or I can click and drag. As I am clicking and dragging on that number, I can click and drag left and right to dynamically increase the spacing between characters, between lines of characters. So basically the exact same dynamics as to what you work with when you're working in, say, InDesign, for example, or Illustrator. You also have the ability, as with the other programs, to select the text and change the spacing between characters by changing the tracking value. So if you go in and decrease the tracking value, you'll see that your text gets closer, your characters get closer to one another, or they get further apart from one another, depending on what your settings are. You also have the ability to full italicize or full bold things if you want to. You have the ability to increase or decrease the height or the width of characters independently. So I mean, all of the tools that you have available to you under those typesetting programs, you have available here. Notice also that you have the ability to change paragraph information. So you have the ability to center your text, left justify it, right justify it. So you have those that ability. You will notice though that this basically created the text where I clicked, and you'll notice that my anchor point happens to be exactly where I clicked. So what happens when I want my text, my anchor point elsewhere, or if I want to set my text at the center of the screen? Well, let's go ahead and right click on the window on the timeline for this composition, go to New, and go to Text. You'll notice that the cursor actually starts at the center of the screen. And if I start, you'll notice also that I have an empty text layer. And if I start typing, okay, then I start typing from the center of the screen. Let me switch my tool to the selection tool, and you'll notice that my anchor point is there. So if I, center my text has been centered on the screen. So that is also a way to secure that your text will start at the center of the screen. How do I know that that's the center of the screen? Well, since I didn't click on the composition, I let the program decide for me where the position of that text layer would be. And the program not knowing where it is, it always centers the anchor point of whatever you're creating in the center of the actual visual area. So if I do that, or in this case, my composition window. So if I change that, I can go ahead and take advantage of that to center items right away from the creation point. Now that anchor point behaves just like any other anchor point, and if I uncollapse the layer, you'll notice that I have my set of transformations as I do with any of the other layers that are available to me to change the properties of that layer. So I have those available in there. I also have a new set of properties called text, which we will talk about in the next video. So now know that basically that is the setup. Now, how if I want, I have this center right now in my text, but you obviously notice that it is at the bottom of my layer. And if I were to try to move it with my pan behind tool, I could, but I don't know where the center of that layer happens to be. So it is always kind of a drawback when you have this, because if I, let's say, for example, let me switch my tool to the text tool again, go all the way to second, hit return and say, this is third, and then hit return and say, hi there, just text. You will notice that my anchor point remains right where it was created. So my text is basically pushing down from that anchor point to below. What happens if I want to place this in the middle of my text, literally, vertically, and horizontally? Well, you select the layer that you have been working with, and you can always go under Layer, Transform, and then say Center Anchor Point in Layer Content. You can also use the shortcut, if you remember that shortcut, Control-Alt-Home. So if you do that and you click that, that places your anchor point at the center of the layer. But you notice that it moved down from the center of my composition. If I press on this button here, on this switch, and I choose Title Save Action, you'll notice that the center, it actually creates these guides for me that tell me the Title Save Action area, and we've already talked about this in class. And it shows me the center of the composition. It's right here, and you'll notice that my anchor point for that layer is there. So how do I bring that back onto the center and know that it is at the center? Well, you can always go ahead and go back again to Layer, Transform, and with the item selected, Center in View. And you'll notice that it brings that layer back to the center of the screen. Therefore, let me delete this one. You now have the anchor centered to the layer and the layer centered to the composition. So these are some of the things that you can do with text that are, I mean, this is typesetting is fairly straightforward, nothing magical on this. We create most of our titles, we create from within the program. But sometimes we would want to import text from other programs. So in this case, I have set up let's say, for example, you spent a lot of time working in Photoshop or Illustrator to create your titles because you're a designer by trade, let's say, and you feel more comfortable setting up your typesetting in those programs. So how do you bring that into After Effects and then bring it back to life? Well, I have a title here that I created in Photoshop, nothing fantastic, and actually I misspelled the name. It's supposed to be sample title, not SMAPple title. And this is just a piece of text. You'll notice that it is text that I can change, for which I can change, say, color. And so it is live text. So I'm going to go ahead and save this again, just because I made the change in color. And I am going to bring that as a composition into After Effects. So I'm going to go ahead and import that file, and you'll find that when I import it, sorry, I should have imported as composition, not as footage. So there it is, composition, retain layer sizes. When I import it as that, I'll say okay to this. and it opens up the new composition and a folder that contains everything that was available, the background and the text layer itself. So let me double click that sample title composition, and you'll notice that this is just a layer. It is a PSD layer, as you can see here by the icon is showing you that this is a Photoshop layer. But if I select it, I can always bring that back as text because it recognizes that it came from Photoshop, and it has metadata that is attached to it that tells the program this is a text layer. So if I go to layer and I go to transform, I can go ahead, and it's not under transform, I apologize. It is under create. Yeah, there it is. So if I go under layer, create, convert to editable text, it now becomes text inside After Effects. You'll notice that the layer has changed to the icon has changed to a T, telling me that that is actually text. And I can go ahead and select the text in here and make changes if I need to. Say, for example, I want to bring this down, I can go ahead and do that. So this now becomes a text layer inside After Effects, which I can edit and bring back to life, meaning I can animate it. And we're going to see how we animate these text characters and the lines in our next video.